when they get the urge to reproduce. So if you look on your monitor, we'll start thinking about fish camp again by showing you this film clip of a fish wheel actually catching salmon. And no external motor or engine is needed to make it go. Powered entirely by river current. Also on your monitor. Good afternoon, my friend.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ray, just like JR said, but my traditional name is Nutahobaknok, meaning new woman. Now, I'm from the village of Seldovia, and my grandparents are from Old Harbor, which is on Kodiak Island in south central Alaska. And I grew up fishing on the ocean for salmon and halibut with my family. So my family's fish camp looks way different than the one you see here on shore.
Yeah, I was going to say ocean fishing is a very different.
My mom's fish camp is about 50 miles from our village at the base of Mount Iliamna. And we fish by boat on the rivers there, as well as on the oceans. And the main part of an Athabascan fish camp would be the fish wheel offshore here. Now, it is an efficient fish catching machine that allowed Athabascan people to catch enough salmon in the summertime to support their families and dog teams through the winter months. Now, back on shore, we have our canvas-walled tents, and that's where the families would stay each summer. Closer to me, we have the air drying racks, and that's where the salmon would be hung up to dry before going into the smokehouse, which is this large permanent structure behind me here. And the smokehouse is key to turning the salmon into a lightweight and fully preserved food source. Now, after the smokehouse, it would go into the cache, which is that little structure just beyond it. And it's built on stilts to keep any pesky animals away from our preserved salmon. Now, back between the canvas-walled tents, you'll see our dog houses. And that's where our dogs would stay each summer to act as a natural predator deterrent.
Yeah, because if a bear lumbers into the camp, that not only is a threat to your family, but weeks of work could be destroyed in just minutes. And you don't get that back, obviously. Speaking of the work now, let's go back to the cutting table. What was this you showed us when we were going the other way?
So, here I have a chum salmon. And here in the interior, we get 3 types of salmon. A single run of the king and silver, and 2 runs of the chum. Now, since chum is considered a slightly lesser quality salmon, and we get 2 runs of it, it's mostly used for dog food. And here I've started the basic dog food cut. I've started by removing the head, and then separating the 2 fillets from the backbone, leaving them connected at the tail so that they could then be hung up on the air drying racks. And the backbone still has a little bit of meat on it, and this would make a great summer snack for our dogs at fish camp. Now, the head would make a wonderful snack for our dogs, but if this were the head of a higher quality king or silver salmon, it would be made into a delicacy called fish head soup for our elders.
Oh, fish head soup.
Nice sheen or glaze on it, and then it can go into the smokehouse. Now, keep in mind that every family in every region has their own preferences and techniques for smoking salmon. And since this process is for dog food, it'll rotate in the smokehouse for up to 2 weeks until it is fully preserved, weighs less than a pound, and looks something like this.
Yeah. See, much easier to carry, bundle up like firewood, and the dogs will gnaw away on it very happily all winter. It's just like nutritional rawhide. But I don't imagine that your human family would enjoy nutritional rawhide as an entree. So how about the salmon that you prepare for people?
Well, a different process. We would start with a higher quality king or silver salmon, and then we would wash it very well. Now, we like fillets too, but it could also be cut into long vertical pieces like this called salmon strips. Now, after the strips are cut, it would go into a brine. Of honey, brown sugar, and salt is what usually my family uses. Now, the salt is not just there for the flavor, but also to keep any pesky bugs off of the salmon. After the brine, it would get hung up on the air drying racks to dry, and then it would go into the smokehouse. but only for 2 to 3 days because we like a nice and soft texture. Now finally, we would use a different wood to smoke the salmon. My family usually uses alder for its sweeter flavor, but you could also use, for the dogs, driftwood, spruce, cottonwood. They're not all that too picky.
No, never.
今晚干木干香了，真是。
Alright, hi everybody. So, all of the Downey Rivers, plus my family today, and we're rotating with 2 other groups. So, large game animals were a pair of snowshoes like these. Now, these snowshoes allowed us to outmaneuver a solitary moose or caribou in some pretty deep snow conditions. This snowshoe is made from 2 pieces of bent birch wood, fastened together with some rawhide babiche, and it has a moose hide strip for the binding. And these large game animals provide
Baby, really?
I don't want the cable to show, so I can play.
Now, because bull moose are incredibly territorial and that noise mimics the same sound that antlers make when they scrape against the tree during their mating season, it might just bring one into the area to investigate the way. It's a very deep, guttural, grunting sound. Would you like a demonstration? Yeah. Awesome. Ray wants to give you one.
Yeah, bossy boy.
Bone tip spear to provoke the animal's charge. Then the spear would be planted into the ground and the hunter would crouch below. So that way when the moose came charging and it reared up to stomp the hunter, it'd be forced to impale itself on the tip of the spear. Then all our brave hunter had to do was skillfully and quickly roll out from underneath that heavy falling animal. Now, of course, once the meat is processed, we can then begin preparing hides for clothing, shelter, and lashing. To begin this, we scrape all flesh and feathers like we just saw at the last shot, or as an all-purpose rope. But after weeks and weeks of soaking hides, scraping them and wringing them out, we could finally bring them to a soft piece of material just like this one here. Now to preserve all of that hard work, she would then stretch the hide over a campfire and smoke it. And you can always tell a true native tan hide by its rich and smoky smell. Traditional regalia with you all. Here I have a ceremonial maiden's dress. And here is the ceremonial chief's coat. Now both of these garments are museum quality, and they're made from canned moose hides that were prepared using the traditional methods that Leo just shared with you all. Now, after contact with Westerners, we traded our furs for glass seed beads and became known for our beautiful and intricate beadwork designs. And the floral patterns on both garments have symbolic meaning. The ones found here at the bottom of the maiden's dress are flowers that would be commonly found in her village, like the bluebells and the Alaska state flower, the forget-me-not. Now the flowers on the pockets and cuffs of the sheep's coat represent animal tracks and hopes of bringing the trapper good luck on his trap line. Both of these garments are trimmed with beaver fur, and the buttons on the sheep's coat are cross-sections of moose antler. Which translates to everyday working parka. But speaking of parkas, I think you're really gonna like this next piece. Leo is modeling an Athabascan Yukon-style women's winter parka. And it's all traditional except for the big zipper running right down the middle. That's just there so we can get it on and off quickly on hot summer days. Now, traditionally, it would be sewn together in the middle and worn pullover style. And the main body of the parka is beaver fur that is sheared for design. It is then trimmed with calfskin, river otters, and timber wool. But get ready because she's going to show you the sunshine wrap. The outer part of that parka wrap is timber wool, while the inner part is wolverine. Now, wolverine is always sewn closest to the face because it has a natural oil in its fur that prevents frostbite. Now, any leftover pieces would be sewn into these tassels, which are wolverine tipped with timber wool. And she would sew these on to show that her man is a skilled hunter, not that tricky wolverine. Now she's going to turn around and show us the designs on the back. Beadwork and skin sewing techniques are passed down mother to daughter, generation after generation. And each family has their own unique design. For example, the artist who made this parka is from Fort Yukon, and this is her family's traditional wild rose pattern. So if she were to travel to another village, they'd know exactly where she was coming from just by looking at the back of her parka. Thank you, Leo.
Steamboats, which are kind of like the one we all just took today, called Discovery. But then the Alaska Native nomadic lifestyle experienced a major shift. Missionaries, traders, and trappers followed, and they introduced new metal tools, foods, education, and cultural practices. The new schools, along with the development of trading tools, largely contributed to the creation of permanent villages. And just like the original log cabins built in these early Athabascan villages, this cabin here is made entirely from the trees harvested from this site. We began by taking large white birch trees, which are just like the ones still growing around us. They were then cut, peeled, and stacked to the walls. The stacked between the logs are then seeped with moss to wind into the cabin. On the roof is made forward and protected face from wind, where the entire thing is made into one complete parka. This one here is the lynx. Lynx are closely related to the bobcat, and they are most well known for their black-tipped ears Their short and stubby tails and big, fluffy paws and frostbite. The wolverine are also highly regarded for being ferocious and cunning animals. Some of the best and luckiest Athabascan trappers ever came home with these. Even growing up in my village to this day, we are always taught if a bear and wolverine meet on a path, it's going to be the bear who very graciously steps aside. Now, as for that beautiful white pelt on the end, I'm sure some of you noticed, this one is the Arctic fox. These are more commonly found in the northern part of Alaska, up above the Arctic Circle. And this one is this winter coat, which is completely white, but in the summer they turn entirely brown for camouflage. Now, these little guys here are ermine. They're also white, but with brown tipped tails. And in the summer, these will turn a chocolatey brown color. By then, we usually just call them weasels.